I feel like we should have had a brief beforehand. Like,
What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of the Movie Now podcast with probably one of my favorite names to say, Thelma Cheeks. This makes you smile. I like it. Thelma, why don't you introduce yourself?
well, hi guys. My name is Thelma Cheeks. I am with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Metro Brokers, Cheeks Real Estate Group LLC here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I service pretty much everyone at all price points. I do not discriminate whatsoever, and I love assisting people in gaining purchasing power to buy back the block.
Woo, that was an elevator speech and a half. You had that one ready. What got you into real estate? Why did you choose real estate? It's a little bit of a crazy career, so I always love to ask this question because I'm sure. Go for it.
So honestly, I kind of fell into real estate. So I recently moved into Atlanta about 4.5 years ago myself. I'm originally from Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I was a hairstylist for 23 years there. So when I moved to Atlanta, I still tried to do hair, but I also had continued my education. So I was ready to go into corporate America. However, finding a job here in Atlanta is very difficult. So I had some issues with that. I got into one job. I absolutely hated it. Before I started that job, I said, what could I do? And I can continue to be my own boss and be an entrepreneur. So I wanted to purchase a house, and the lady was like, you're not really ready yet. And when she said that, something clicked in my mind and was like, I need to help people do this, like relocate, because people had already been reaching out to me about how did you relocate? It seems like you did it so smoothly. So I decided to go to real estate school, and the rest is history.
Amazing. And you know what? I didn't even know about that you had relocated in from out of state. So you were actually the perfect guest for this podcast. So down there in Atlanta, I've been a few times myself. I have family, not as much and as often as I should be, but the few times that I have been, I'm a little aware of some of the entertainment values. So what are some of the main attractions that bring people to Atlanta? What were the first things you noticed when moving there that you were like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I'm here because I have this?
Yeah. So I used to visit here all the time in the hair industry anyway. So a place that I would go to all the time is the Georgia World Congress Center, where they would have big, huge conventions. And it's right downtown in the city of Atlanta. So that brought all kind of people. It's right next to Phillips Arena. I think they just changed it to State Farm Arena now. So you got professional basketball teams. You have professional football teams right downtown. The Atlanta Falcons, of course. We have professional baseball, which is the Braves right there in Marietta, Smyrna area. So we have everything for everyone. The city life is bar none. You can always go out on any particular night and have a great time, no matter your age, race, whatever you want to do. There's something for everyone here. I absolutely love that. That's what brought me here.
Amazing. So what would you say moving to Atlanta was a little different? So those were some positives. What were some of the things that you were like, oh, I didn't know Atlanta had this? Let's start with weather. What's the weather in Atlanta usually like?
So the weather to me is extremely mild. I would say we have 3 seasons. I would say we have spring, summer, and fall. They kind of just bypass winter. Now today is about 33 degrees. So the people down here are freezing their tails off. However, there's no snow. In Michigan, where I'm from, they're expecting a snowstorm tomorrow. So this is nothing for me. Like, I've been waiting to wear my winter coats, okay? My winter boots. I'm excited about this weather. But when it does snow here, everything shuts down. So it does snow, very, very seldomly. I would say probably once every other year. And it's usually in the northern part of Atlanta. But everything shuts down. Like, they literally have freeze warnings in the apartment units all throughout the community, telling people to, make sure their water is ran every so often, make sure their heat is on. I'm like, it might snow. Like, really? What are you doing? So that's hilarious to me. But other than that, the job market was a little difficult here. I encourage people all the time before they move down here, solidify a job. Like, that is paramount. You have to do that because it's so competitive.
Do you think that's why, and I just know this from a lot of people that I follow, I'll tell you some of them in a little while. We'll see if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
they come from Atlanta. Entrepreneurism is strong in Atlanta. Would
Mhm,
you
mhm.
say that that is a byproduct of the fact that there aren't a ton of jobs, so therefore people are forced to kind of find their own way? Would you say that Atlanta is kind of that city that'll force you to make it on your own?
I would say that yes, but not because there is not a lot of jobs. Like that's the wrong connotation. There
Okay.
is plenty of jobs. There's
Okay.
plenty of companies here. Like Amazon has built, I don't know how many warehouses in the last 2 years during COVID, during a pandemic. So there are so many jobs here. Microsoft just came here in Midtown. Google is here. They're talking about tech companies building like the motors or the electronic things for Tesla or whatever. They're building that here soon. Like there is so many jobs. That is not the problem.
Okay.
The problem is there's so many people trying to get the same job and they're coming here without that track record of their work history, so their resumes are not standing out. So this is a place where you have to have connections. You have to have people that that are in these locations or job markets that you want to be in to push your application to the top. So in the interim, I do believe that with COVID, a lot of people realized they didn't necessarily like their job. Maybe they had to go home and work from home and they really wasn't that type of person. Or maybe they were forced to go into the office and they felt like they should have been at home. So entrepreneurship is high here, but it's always been high here because there's so many different backgrounds. There's so many abilities to kind of like run your own thing. Everybody needs everything here. So yeah, it's not because we don't have the jobs. We definitely have the jobs. I think it's more or less it's the land of opportunity almost.
Hmm. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
So speaking on jobs and the economy and stuff like that, what is the general cost of living, right? Like, what would you say on an average home? What would you pay in property taxes annually?
So I watched one of your podcasts recently. I can't remember the young lady's name, but she was in North Carolina. And you're very passionate, Anthony, about this tax stuff.
I think anyone watching from Long Island, it's probably our biggest gripe, right? Like, so if you've watched, like our average tax thing here is about $12,000 annually a
Yeah.
year. So if you're looking to get out of Long Island and you're saying to yourself, like, yeah, but like the price of homes is the same. I'm going to spend 500 here and I'm going to go and I'm going to spend 500 there. Like, yeah, you might, but
Yeah.
listen to me when I am trying to explain to you guys, like, the cost of where your money goes annually per year when it goes to something just like property taxes. So go ahead. What are the
Yes,
property
so
taxes?
we don't compare. It's a fraction of that. We're talking 20 to 25% of what you're talking. Like average taxes here is probably 2,500 a year, maybe 3,200 a year. Yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint.
And the average price of homes.
Yes. So the average price of home to get a good move-in ready home right now, and it has escalated. So, I don't know in the past, Atlanta has been very, very affordable, right? And I think people still think that we are, which we are in comparison to New York and California. However, the average price home right now, move-in ready, you don't have to do anything but pack your bags. I would say it's 400,000.
I think that's almost becoming the national average from what I've started to hear across the way.
Yeah.
I've only interviewed a couple of places. I did Q Burdette over in Mississippi.
Hmm.
We can call
Yours is
Q.
low, right?
We can call Q for some cheap houses over in Mississippi. Still, I think he might have them in the 200s
Right.
still. But
Right.
for a lot of the country now, even Florida, which
Hmm.
historically had cheap real estate as well,
Hmm.
we're looking at average price of homes shooting up to around 400,000. So, but that's okay though, right? Because like when we talk about selling here and relocating and trying to get there for specific reasons,
Hmm.
it is the cost. Now, your mortgage payment, right, is one of those things, and yes, you're going to be financing 400,000 also down in Atlanta, but you're going to be financing 400,000 with 2,500 in property taxes. Your mortgage payment is not going to be an extra $1,000 a month the way it here on Long Island is due to the property taxes. So that
Yeah.
is something to pay attention to. Now, what about like the buying procedure down
Right.
there in Atlanta? So if I come down and I want to buy a house in Atlanta, what are
Mhm.
the first steps? What would I have to do?
So I do want to go back. I was trying to fix my blinds, but forget about it. The the average price I did say that was 400,000. I will say you can still purchase a home for say 275 and 300. You just are going to want to go in there, roll up your sleeves and do something.
It's a fixer-upper at that
Yeah,
price.
but it's
Okay.
not so much you got to do a lot per se. Sometimes it's just painting and new appliances, you know what I'm saying, or doing the landscaping. So again, I work with all price points, so there is something that can be done there. But if you don't want to have to do anything, 400 is where we are.
So,
So
before we move on from that topic, because you got my
yeah,
wheels rolling now, what's the average rent on a home in Atlanta?
yeah, great question. So I would say at the least for a 3 bedroom, because I heard you ask this before, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, it's probably going to be at the bare minimum 16 to 1700. If you want something again that's on the nicer side, you're going to be looking at least $2,200, and that's like great school district, really nice community. But if you just need a home, 3-2, in a decent area, you could probably get it as low as 1,700.
And so from an investor standpoint, with low taxes, and you can
Mhm.
pick something up maybe in the high twos that might need a little elbow grease, but you can get it on the market for rent.
Yeah.
Sounds like there might even be some money left for some positive cash flow at the end of it, even financed with a decent
Yeah.
down payment. So, awesome to hear, because again, up here, when you start factoring in those extra costs, to be a landlord here on Long Island is very challenging.
Hmm.
Especially with interest rates where they're at, plus the taxes and stuff. So it really cuts into that bottom line. So
Yeah.
so if I want to come down and I want to buy a house there, the buying procedure, what's my first step? I call you up. Obviously, your first step is call Thelma, right? So your first step is call Thelma. Second step is going to be what?
So the second step is going to be get a pre-approval, get a up-to-date, validated pre-approval. I have been dealing with a certain company, and I won't say any names. They are notorious for giving people pre-approvals online, and they call me and they think they're ready and they think they have been validated. And once I probe them and I vet them, I'm like, sounds a little fishy to me. Let's get you a verified or underwritten approval. And so I'll either send them back to that same company to show them their documents, their assets, their check stubs and things like that, to get that pre-approval more concise, or I'll send them to one of my preferred lenders and they'll take them through the ringer. I think a lot of people are very frustrated about the process. I really feel like I wish we could get rid of Google. Like, not Google the company, but the fact that everyone thinks that they're an expert just from Googling something. Even with searching for a house, they're like, oh, well, I don't see anything in my price point, or all the good homes are gone. And it's like, you're doing a quick Google search. Like, you haven't hired an expert, you haven't hired a realtor to go hard in the paint for you. You have no idea what you have available to you. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like people have been miseducated, especially with the media. The media is hyping up, oh, the market is crazy, or it's not a good time to buy. It's a seller's market. Well, actually, it's changing. It's changing into a buyer's market. It's not there yet, but I feel like we're getting pretty close to an equal playing field. And depending on what you can afford to do, you can really still grab some great deals.
I agree with that 100%. And you touched on something that I don't think any other person that we've interviewed on the show has really kind of like scratched on. And I think that it's worth it for us to take a moment and try to like educate our viewers in this way.
Mhm.
What Thelma's trying to say, right, is could you imagine trying to figure out what the weather is going to be like in your neighborhood by watching the weather in Germany?
Right.
Because that's what happens when you call a 1-800 number for a mortgage and they're not located in your state or your area, because they have zero idea what is required for that local state.
Yep.
And I will give you a perfect example. I think one of the companies that you're referring to, and you're right, we won't name them by name, but they're one of those spaceship mortgage companies, right? Those spaceship mortgage companies, right? Many a times what they don't understand is that here in the state of New York, and a lot of people are shocked to hear this, our closing costs we need to escrow 6 months worth of property taxes as well as 1 year's of homeowners insurance for our closing costs here. So our closing costs on average are 5% of the purchase price, whereas nationally they are a fraction of that because they don't have those New York State mandated escrows of 6 month property taxes and 1 year's homeowners insurance. Some states do. Georgia might be one of them. But for the states that don't, now again, when we talk about the cost of those property taxes, right? And you have to escrow 6 months worth of 2,500 or 1,250, or 6 month worth of 12 grand for $6,000. Your closing costs are going to be a lot more expensive here in the state of New York than they are there. Now, what happens when you call these online mortgage companies and they say, "Oh, your closing costs are going to be $2,300," and then you actually get to the closing table to find out they are very much not that. Exactly. And this is why we as real estate agents, with no financial benefit of our own, always try to recommend someone locally. It's illegal for us to benefit anything from it financially, so none of us do. We always point you somewhere locally because none of us want to rip our hair out as we try to explain to a person in Germany that it is not raining here on Long Island, even if they said it was. Okay. So when you go on the web, and this is what she means by Google, and you go on the web and you just type in mortgage and you go with the first company that pops up and that company says, "Hey, we can give you a loan," you are more than likely already opening the door for all of the problems that you can expect to have during your transaction. And what ends up happening with most of those clients, and I'm sure the same thing goes for Thelma, is they end up calling you and begging you to put them in touch with that local lender so that you can fix the problem that was created by this, mythical spaceship mortgage company. So I think that it's so important for us to really drive it home that every real estate professional that I've interviewed so far has started with two things. One, pick them as a real estate agent because that's the obvious. That's why they're on the show. And two, take guidance on things like that. And it's very important to be competitive. Do you know how often I tell people, "Hey, how about we just compete? Let's compare and compete. You take your pre-approval and the offer that you got on your own and take the one that, these 3 people that I can recommend can give you, compare all 4 offers, shop it out, because that's how you get the best deal. You could leverage one company against the other. That's called smart business." So take our word on this, guys. It's a really important task. No matter where you're buying a house, you want to make sure that this pre-approval process, you go through it correctly. So are lawyers necessary in Georgia to purchase a home, because they are here on Long Island?
So they are, and I was scratching my head a little bit about the process there in New York because I know that we're different. However, the lawyers pretty much do the title work here, and they also they do the closing.
Yes.
However, the contract is binding simply by the signatures from the realtors creating the document in the GAR forms, the Georgia Association of Realtors forms. Yeah.
That must be nice. They don't agree with that. They don't agree with that here in the state of New York. They're like, "You guys, no matter how much education, whether you got a broker's license or not, you don't know what you're doing." But what we can do, we can legally prepare contracts subject to attorney approval. So we can get it like 3/4 of the way there, but we always need to ask mom for permission once we get to the end of it. It's not something that we could just stamp and say, "Hey, now you're in." So that is the one defining difference. In order for a contract,
I'm sorry, it sounds like it would delay the process quite a bit.
It delays the process immensely because what ends up happening is, one attorney's away on vacation, one attorney's observing a holiday, the other attorney just doesn't feel like answering you back. I don't want to take shots at attorneys on this call, but y'all need to stop measuring. Okay, let's just get over it. You're all great. You all passed the bar. You're all awesome. It's fine. But the amount of time spent trying to prove who has more legalese knowledge inside of an email kills so many deals for us real estate agents that are just like, "Hey, the iron's still hot. Have you ever heard you had to strike it while it's this, it's a hurry up and wait kind of game for us as real estate agents and brokers here. And there are some excellent lawyers on Long Island. And unfortunately, the best ones are the busiest ones, and the busiest ones sometimes have a hard time. So when somebody tells you "Yeah, I got a lawyer that's going to sign a contract inside of 24 hours, if your eyebrow doesn't go up "Meh, why are they available?" You got a different problem on our end. So hilarious. One thing that I've been focusing on, because I have parents that are reaching a point in life where they're starting to look at downsizing.
Mhm.
And being on the personal end of this conversation has gotten hard for me because I am overprotective of my mother. My dad can go wherever he wants. He can live in a shoebox if that's really what he wants to do. He's always wanted an RV, and I'm like, you're not taking my mother on the road. You got to give her roots, in a place she can plant a tree and have a garden. So I've been focusing more on condos
Okay.
because I feel like condos have such an excellent value pack for people who are saying to themselves, I can't buy a house in this climate right now. It's too
Mhm.
expensive for me. I can't swing it. Do you have good condo options? I was amazed to find that St. Louis has some really affordable condos. What are the condos like down there in Georgia?
Yeah, so everything, the price points for the homes, the townhomes, condos, it really is dependent upon where it's located. Obviously, the closer you are to the city center, things are going to be higher, but also you'll have less traffic. So condos, they, I've seen them. Geez, I'm talking about move-in ready, maybe one bedroom or studio. I've seen them as low as 100,000, and then I've seen them in the millions. So it
Yeah.
really just depends on where you're going to be, the square footage, and what's included in that community association.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So traffic, let's touch on that. You just said it. Okay. Some of the places we've interviewed include like Kansas City. Kansas City, I learned, is a highway town, and you could travel through 5 counties in under an hour, right? So
Mm.
you can do 5 counties in about 45 minutes over there. What's the traffic like over in Atlanta? And I kind of already know from sitting in it myself, but forget that.
Well, I wish I could say how many counties you can get through in a certain amount of time, but it really depends on what day you're traveling and what time of day you're traveling. I personally probably have sold in like 10, maybe like 8 to 10 different counties just because there's so many in the central area. But traffic is probably the worst thing about Atlanta. I think I've heard that our public transportation needs an upgrade. But I think it's very important to live close. And when I say close, I mean like within 30 minutes of your job on a given day. Like not with high traffic, but on regular smooth traffic, you need to be within 30 minutes of your job because you don't want that stress every day going into work and coming home and you lose so much time commuting. So here recently, I've been focusing on my central location. I'm in South Fulton. It's probably 10 minutes from the airport, Hartsfield Atlanta International. I love being in this area. I used to live north of Atlanta, which was like Woodstock. It's like 45 minutes north of Atlanta. It was a very nice community, great school districts and things like that. However, it took me an hour to get to the airport, and I love to travel. So I don't want to be an hour from the airport. I think because our airport is the busiest in the world, this is a great location. And you will find that you're going to pay more to be conveniently located. But in the end, you're going to save yourself a lot of money. So average commute times here can be anywhere from 25 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on where you're trying to go.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah. So if you're leaving Long Island for traffic and thinking you're going to Atlanta to leave it, guys, like find some comfort in knowing that you'll have the comforts of traffic there as well. Um, as Thelma said though, and that was really nice of you to say because that's so thoughtful, and I don't know how many of us stop to think about people's happiness.
Oh,
We do sell lifestyles, right? And part of your lifestyle is going to be your commute. And part of that commute is going to lead to your overall happiness day in and day out. And no one wants to do an hour and a half worth of traffic and get out and then cook dinner for the family or pick up dinner on your way home and think you're going to be a happy dad at the end of all that or a happy mom. And we're all human. And after sitting through an hour and a half of grueling traffic bumper to bumper, I don't think any of us are in the mood to smile and click our heels and sing songs, right? It's usually grueling. So that's good perspective on saving yourself a headache, and maybe you spend a little bit more, but there is a cost for happiness, and I think that some people need to weigh that out. One thing that's been a byproduct of all these raising costs is that it's forcing people to prioritize living, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, and I don't want to create enemies out of this, but
Mhm.
when we hit inflation and we hit these points of recession and the economy gets a little tough, all it really does is put back into perspective what we actually spend our money on.
Mhm.
And you may not want to spend that much money on your housing, but it is your housing. It's where we spend like 90% of our lives for the most part. So think
Mhm.
about it in the way, it's worth a couple of bucks extra there. So that's great insight from you.
Thank you.
What is Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia known for outside of the peaches? What is Atlanta, Georgia known for? What would I come there? And as far as food, take me down a food trip real quick, because I think you can tell I don't skip many. Um,
So my answer is going to be twofold. To piggyback on what we just talked about, the travel time in the car, just to go back to when I was in corporate America, when I first moved here briefly. I spent so much time in the car and I sat at a desk at work most of the time. I gained like 20, 25 pounds. I was so miserable. Most people look at me and like, where? I don't see it. The problem is when you have that extra weight on yourself, it weighs on you in a different kind of way. People can't really tell you how it's going to make you feel. But that traffic adds to it because you're sitting more, you're eating more fast food and different things like that. So to get into the peaches of Atlanta, it's funny, ironic. I've never had a great peach here.
you're gonna get your Atlanta card revoked right now. People are gonna be looking for you on the streets like, that's Thomas. She said she don't like our peaches. Find her.
When my mom comes this holiday season, I am going to take her to the grocery store and ask her to pick us out some peaches because she absolutely loves peaches, but I've never had a great peach here. Maybe I'm
Wow.
just not a peach lover. I don't know. But Atlanta is known for a lot of things. Food wise, I would say the diversity. There's a lot of different food options here. You can pretty much have whatever you want on any given day. I personally love brunch. I like to marry my breakfast with my dinner,
Okay.
and so many restaurants have great, chicken and waffles. I would say that's probably number one here.
Yeah.
Chicken and waffles. People love that, and you can get waffles done any kind of way. I've had red velvet cake waffles. I've had whole chickens with the waffle. I've had chicken wings with the waffle, chicken tenders with the waffle. They're all fried, of course. You got to be careful at the restaurants here because they will, like I said, they'll give you them extra pounds if you want them, honey. You go get it.
I Atlanta was the first place I ever went, and I said, how does Long Island not have this? It was a make your own pasta dish restaurant. Like, you walked in, you picked the type of pasta, the type of sauce, any ingredients you wanted to add in with it, and I was like, yeah,
Nice.
they know how to do this right now. Like, you could get tortellini with like vodka sauce, and like they just were like that, whatever you wanted, they're like, just pick it. And I was like, wow, this is
Absolutely.
so yeah, so that's awesome. So it's really funny.
Mhm.
And then for entertainment, you said you can go out. There's a lot of sports and things like that. What about like for the people that are outdoors people, right? Parks, any well-known parks by you that you would highly recommend somebody who likes parks to go and visit while they're down there in Atlanta?
Yeah, so in there is this trail kind of located in Midtown. It actually stretches through most of Atlanta. It is called the Beltline. You can
Okay.
catch it like on 10th Street, right downtown in Midtown, actually. And it actually, I want to say Piedmont Park is like the center of it all. And this trail is so many miles long and it goes throughout the city. And you can bike it, you can rent scooters, electric scooters. You can blade on it. You can walk. It's so nice. And in Midtown, there's so many different restaurants that are backed up to it. Ponce Market is backed up to it. We also have Stone Mountain, which is a really great hiking location. You literally are hiking up a mountain. If you are afraid of heights, I do not suggest it. My son literally had a panic attack the first time we
Oh
did as a
no.
family. Yeah, it was, but I thought my husband was going to have to carry him down, and he was probably like 10 or 11 years old at the time, and I felt so bad for him. He literally cried.
Aw.
But then there's another Kennesaw Mountain, which is a lot more subtle than Stone Mountain. There is Victory Falls, I believe, or Victory Creek, Bamboo Forest. Like, if you love hiking and outdoors, this is the place. It's so much greenery. I visited Las Vegas once before. Actually, I visit Las Vegas a lot. Love Las Vegas. However, is way too desert-like for me. I need the greenery. I need to see different skylines, and yeah, so I love Atlanta scenery. It's bar none.
Yeah, one obviously as a real estate agent, I don't know if all of us are like this, but I do have a love for houses, right? Like I have a
Mhm.
love for people too, which you have to do this business, but I have a love for houses. I love the architecture of homes. My office here in New York is an 1890s Victorian style home.
Nice.
I'm staying in a room that I always sit and kind of get a little weirded out and think to myself, I wonder what this room was used for. So it's definitely a bedroom of some kind that I'm standing in.
Yeah.
And down in Georgia, you just see these amazing colonial homes with the tree lined driveways and the what are those trees that lean over with the all the branches that lean down? Is it like a weeping willow, something like that?
Oh
I guess?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
things
Mhm.
that you just don't see here on Long Island up in the north. We
Mhm.
get a ton of oak trees and things like that. Like it's just completely different.
Yeah.
So it's, and then of course it all dies for a couple of months here and looks just terrible and gray and
Yeah.
it's terrible. So I absolutely love some of the homes in like Savannah, Georgia, and even over there in
Mhm.
Atlanta and stuff. So
Mhm.
um that's a great list. I follow there's a personal trainer down in Atlanta. His Instagram handle is Mr. 2 Weeks Out. And he regularly makes people, I think, run up that stone mountain. So I think I've seen it maybe once or twice. But if you've never checked out any of his content, it's great. He always gives out free workout tips, which
Nice.
I obviously use all the time. So um, but yeah, he's so motivating, and a lot of the stuff that he posts is great.
Nice.
Yeah. So what would you say to people who are considering relocating would be maybe one of the number one reasons as to why they should choose Atlanta?
Ooh. That's so difficult because everybody has different pain points and different motivations. I think I would say the number one thing is we have it all. We have it all. We have something for everybody. I think if you are looking for warmer weather, if you are looking to be close to other cities, if you are looking to be close to a major airport where you can get flights just about anywhere
Let's
on
talk about that airport real quick.
on
If
a
you've never
regular
flown into the
basis.
airport, if you've never flown into Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta airport, tell people what they have to expect.
So honestly, the airport is smooth. Like I have a love relationship with the airport. Like there's nothing about it that I hate. I think some people, if they're not used to big airports, they get overwhelmed when they see the TSA line because that thing literally can just spiral out of control. And when you see it, it's almost like, are you kidding me? This the line I just gave the lady my bag and I'm in line for TSA now. It's all the way back here. Like, yeah, you should have got TSA pre-check or you should have got clear. That is huge here. You have to have at least TSA pre-check. Otherwise, you're going to be in line for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half
Oh my
during
gosh.
holiday seasons. Yeah.
Okay.
But you can go anywhere, anywhere on a daily basis here. And you can, like, we have restaurants in there and bars. Sky Club, Delta has a Sky Club. I'm kind of impartial to Delta as well. Love Delta. You can just hang out there at the airport. I mean, it's almost like a mall there. Hey, I love it. Like I said, I'm 10 minutes away from the airport. I gotta have it close.
So I remember the first time I flew into Atlanta airport, and I was like following this guy. I had no clue where to go. I flew in by myself. I was going to meet my sister, and I'm like, yeah, like where's luggage claim? And when he pointed to the train, right? I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I haven't gotten my luggage yet. I can't leave the airport yet. He's like, no, you're not leaving the airport. You got to get on this train to get to your luggage. I'm like, I have to take a train. So like, I live in New York. We have JFK. We have LaGuardia.
Right.
We don't have small airports, but you don't have to take a train when you get off your plane over in JFK to get to your luggage. It's downstairs. So that was just like, it was a beyond experience for me
Yeah.
going into Atlanta, realizing like, oh my gosh, like we need a train uh, to get to the rest of this airport. Like, and I heard someone say one time, it's like it's in a zip code all of its own. That the airport
Yeah.
is so big that it has like almost its own zip code. So
The hilarious part is that it touches probably two different counties and maybe like 4 or 5 cities. That's just how
Listen,
fast the
guys, if you're
airport.
listening to this and you're not like, you have to like really imagine how big this airport is. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's I think that's one of the main attractions in Atlanta. If we have to tell people, like, you don't even have to leave, just fly to the airport, have yourself some dinner, go to the mall, take the train back and forth a few times, and fly home. You've gotten the full Atlanta experience at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah. And it's funny because the transportation that people always complain about, they definitely make our transportation convenient to get in and out of the airport. Like that's where our MARTA station goes through. So that same train that you're talking about for your baggage claim, there is another stop where you can get on the train to go far north, far south, far east, far west. Like the airport is the center of our city. So I love that. And then not only that, but getting back to why they should move to Atlanta, we're like 2.5 hours away from just about everywhere. Like you can go north to Chattanooga, Tennessee. You can get to Charlotte rather quickly. You can go over to the east side and Myrtle Beach and all of that stuff rather quickly. Destin, Florida, Savannah, Jacksonville. Like everything is within a 5 hour drive. And it's not too many cities that you can. I mean, even Mississippi, there are people that have dual licenses in North Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, because they are all neighboring cities. Like it's so conveniently located.
Yeah, that's the one thing. If I had to say my biggest complaint about living on an island,
Mhm.
like I can barely get out of Long Island and over the bridge in under 2 hours. Like it is such a process.
Woo.
And then where are you going from there? Like you're going to New Jersey, or you're going to Connecticut, or you're going to upstate New York. Like
Mhm.
very rarely is it the destination. You still got to drive. How much longer? So, I always like to joke that like our trip to Florida, when we drive it, which I don't know how many times I'm doing that again in my life, but when you do drive it, it's about 18 hours nonstop,
Woo.
obviously going for rests and regas and stuff like that. But 3 hours of that is getting off Long Island. So like that's the part that like most people forget. And depending when you time it, if you hit Washington D.C. at the wrong hour, you sit in traffic there. So I always said, I'm like, if they just would build a highway that ran straight from Long Island through the water straight to Florida, I'd probably be there in like 12 hours flat. Like it wouldn't really be that bad.
Right.
But it's such a process trying to get out of here. So that's good. You brought up food a lot, which I love. And I think that Long Islanders, we have a very obnoxious view that you're just not going to get good food anywhere else you go in the world. And I think we're on episode number 11, if I'm right now, or 12 and 11. And guys, like I haven't heard one place say that they don't eat. There's not been a single state that we have interviewed yet that's been like, the food here is terrible, so we're pretty much just only consuming water at any given point in time. You might have to change your taste buds a little bit. The everyday comforts. You know that this question's coming. Long Islanders love their Target. You got a Target in driving distance to you. You got all the major shops that people like to go and use.
Yeah, absolutely. So my target is 9 to 10 minutes away. Is it
Perfect.
located in East Point, right near the airport?
Yeah. And everyone's second follow-up question to that is, does it have a Starbucks inside of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
guys. See what I mean, right? A quarter of the money in
And across the
taxes.
street from it.
Quarter of the money in taxes. You can still grab your Starbucks and walk through Target. I mean, you got the best airport that you can go and hang out at. You got Thelma as possibly your neighbor. You can go to the Georgia Dome. You can go and catch a baseball game. The only thing Atlanta does Atlanta have hockey? Do you guys have a hockey team?
We do. We do have a hockey team. I
Yeah.
hate sports, sorry, but
I guess as a New York Islanders fan, I just can't seem to think who plays in Georgia. Who's
I
the
would I would need to phone a friend for that one. I don't know, but I know we have one.
All right, hold on. We're gonna use the Google. Hold on, let's check it out. The wretched Google. Why can't I remember this? Atlanta
Thrashers.
Thrashers. That is right.
Isn't that professional?
It is professional, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they are on the newer side. And luckily, all my nieces and nephews, if you guys are watching this, I'm so proud that you followed in your Uncle Anthony's footsteps and you are New York Islanders fans for hockey, because it's a better choice. Yes. So anything else that we didn't get to cover here today about Atlanta that you want to shine some light on for people?
Sure. So I would be remiss if I did not mention my brokerage. Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Metro Brokers is the largest brokerage here in the Atlanta area. We have 29 offices and throughout Metro Atlanta, so we can close at any of those locations. We can meet you at any of those locations to make it very convenient for you. We have our own title company, our own financing company, insurance. So it's a one-stop shop. So when you get me, you get all of these things. We have the same broker, Kevin Levent. He's been in business for 40 years. And we're the total package.
And how do they find you if they're looking for you?
So they can find me on Instagram at Realtor Thelma Cheeks. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Realtor Thelma Cheeks. I'm not hard to find whatsoever. Again, Cheeks Real Estate Group, LLC. And my phone number is 678-587-7856. You cannot text that number, but you can definitely text Sold by Cheeks to 35620.
So for all you creepers out there that just got really excited, don't send her a text, leave her alone. But if you're looking for some real estate, guys, maybe a little chicken and waffles, a really good tour of Atlanta, some outdoor activities, you're going to go hike Stone Mountain, make sure that you give Thelma a call. Maybe she could set you up, get you a temporary rental as you're ready to start putting on the search hat in the Atlanta area and getting to know it. The best thing that we always recommend, it seems to be popular, is for people to visit the area. And I'm sure that Thelma would be happy to give you a tour. We are so happy that you decided to join us on this show today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciated being here. I can't believe it's been over 40 minutes. This was so fun. Anthony, I meant to ask you a question early on.
Okay.
Has anyone ever interviewed you? I would love to interview you for one of your podcasts, because I love that you interject your New York, issues and pros and cons, but I would love to interview you solely and make a show all about you. So you let me know when you're ready.
I'm always ready. You let me know when you get that set up. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You're welcome. This was fun. Have a great day.
Yes, you too.